Ah, isn't this beautiful? Look at these very pretty flowers, and there's a pretty horse, and there's a pretty man on a horse, and then there's a pretty man in the guy. Wait, the pretty man in the guy? That doesn't... Hmm. I mean, I guess that could be happening somewhere, probably around over there. But you know, there's a man in the sky. That's what I meant to say. A dwarf in the sky, flying around, checking out all the pretty sights. And these trees are really nice and very coney. Look at the cone trees. Look at that tower that fades in and out. Man, elves really like their like super tall buildings, don't they? Just absolutely loving it. Shining Warm. We also have, you know, Shining Warm here. And she has a really pretty staff, so that's cool. But you know, it is what it is, my guys. And hello, I am here to talk to you today about something that I thought was kind of neat. So there's like a bunch of ladies in the Empire that do all kinds of cool stuff, and I just wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the different ones out there, because I thought that would be kind of cool. And you know, in lore reasons, in lore overhaul, in the Warhammer Empire of Man, men and women are equal, and you can see ladies doing state trooper type stuff, and you see ladies being knights and other things. It's not necessarily the usual, but you can see it happening. And you do have times when people invoke like terrible sexism going blah blah blah, but we don't care about those people because we're gonna stab them with this sword. Well, actually, we're not actually going to stab them. We're going to have a long dialogue, and I'm going to talk to them and tell them about, look how cool Yamina is. No, that's right. You take back your silly words, sir, or madam, sir, or NB. Whatever you desire, I will use your pronouns to tell you how silly you are. But that's beside the point. So I just wanted to, you know, kind of walk around and talk about, like, some interesting ladies in the Empire. And I just chose this random area because, I don't know, it just seemed pretty, and I just kind of flew here and was, like, looking around. I really like wandering around the Elflands. I was getting into a series of RVR scenarios, but they kept going bad, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go record a video and look at the pretty water. But yeah, so we're going to talk about the ladies in the Empire. And these are either characters from books, or they're, like, characters in the role-playing game, or they're characters, you know, like on the tabletop. We got all kinds of stuff here. And the first one I'm going to mention is Genevieve. Wait. Okay, never mind. I realized her name was longer and that I might want to try doing the whole name. I'm not going to try doing that because it's some Bretonian stuff, and we no. And you know, something that's funny, you might say, now, wait a minute, that's a Bretonian lady, isn't it? Because she's actually a vampire who moves to the Empire, but she started her life in Bretonia, and that's true. However, she is now an adopted Empire lady. So yeah, she saved Karl Franz's life. She's also very interesting because she actually lives open. That's an interesting thing for that bird to be doing back there. But she lives openly as a vampire in the Empire, and she has all kinds of really fun adventures. She solves the mystery of a big playhouse. She has a cool lover. She there's a time with like a unicorn. There's all kinds of neat stuff that she does. But I find her very interesting because she's, well, she's a badass, and that's always kind of fun. It's always kind of fun to have badass heroes, as you might, or badass heroines, as you know. Heroes, heroines, I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? But anyway. She's really neat, and she's this vampire, but she, like, doesn't want to drain people. She wants to be good, and she wants to help the Empire, and she saved, like I said, she saved Karl Franz's life. Saved Karl Franz's life. So, right off the bat, she's a hero of the Empire. I gotta tell you, I really find her stories very cool and good, and she's really neat to read about. But I'm not gonna get into too much detail because I don't want to spoil too many things that she does. But you should definitely check out our book series. Really good. Really well written. And I was going to mention someone, but this is only going to be briefly. We also have characters like Rosanna Olfus, who is a scryer who assisted the Altdorf Watch in solving crimes. I thought she was kind of an interesting lady to read about. She's from a book series. I don't remember which one exactly, but she's also pretty interesting. You know, just this, like, magic lady in a land that's like, magic could be badness, but magic could also be goodness. but like she helps the Outdoor Watch solve crimes, and I thought that was kind of interesting. They had like a watch that was kind of more like um kind of policey, and she like helps people solve crimes. I actually think she might appear in the Genevieve series. That might be where I read. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, but she's pretty interesting. She's also a vegetarian because apparently she every time she tried to eat meat, she would scry and see the animal's life, and she didn't like that. So she's also a vegetarian. So hey, now we have a vegetarian lady on there. It's kind of interesting. The I'm going to describe some more ladies. Right. Oh, excuse me, kitty yawn. But one of the things that I find rather interesting about all of this stuff is that there's actually a very wide depiction of different kinds of like women and different kinds of activities that women engage in, and you can see women at various different parts of the empire and at various different like societal and power structure levels. And there is a lot of like, I guess, a lot of men in novels doing stuff, but we also have these really powerful, really interesting women in a lot of these novels, and just interesting characters too, which is I find very interesting. Um, we'll also mention a lady that is quite important in Empire history. Not necessarily the nicest lady though. This is Attila. She was the Elector Countess of Talabecland. I should correct myself. During the Age of Wars that followed the assassination of Emperor Mandred Skavenslayer, she proclaimed herself Empress in 1360 IC without election, and founding the dynasty of the Attilian emperors. So there was a while there where basically the empire had three emperors, and this lady founded one of the dynasties. Apparently, she got one of the Ulrichs involved, which they're like the high priests of the war god Ulrich, who also likes wolves and stuff. These guys look like they're having a bad day, and they have angry faces. These guys are up. But yeah, like one of the prime point, and it was like a whole thing where she like convinced the guy that Sigmar wasn't actually a god and that there was some kind of mistranslation, all kinds of other stuff going on. So that's kind of not very nice of her to do. But yeah, interesting, very schemy. So she has that going for her, which is interesting. And you can see the women are also part of the Empire's history and play a significant role. I mean, Karl Franz is like the bestest character in all of Empire possible history forever. So, having a lady save him means that she gets some of that awesomeness. But then you also have the lady who tore apart the Empire. That's not very nice of her to do. I don't know. I'm only mentioning here because I think it's interesting that one of the three Elector Counts ended up kind of breaking the Empire before the other coolest guy, Magnus the Pious. Hail Magnus! Decided to, reunite the Empire because he's just the best. Karl Franz is probably the best. I don't know. It's kind of hard. I love both those guys. But, yeah, so we already have kind of a variety going on here. And here's something that's kind of interesting. At least I thought it was fairly interesting. Was we have the Sisters of Sigmar. Now, the Sisters of Sigmar are as originally mentioned in the Mordheim game. I couldn't find any mentions of them before the Mordheim game, but they're kind of interesting. Basically, they're an order of nuns who decided that it would be really cool to like get a bunch of like big hammers and stuff after the city of Mordheim fell apart, and then started smashing stuff. But there was a particular lady from the Sisters of Sigmar. Oh, here she is. Bertha, I'm trying this. Bestraufung Frung. Bertha Bestraufung Frung. Okay, yeah. And she was the high matriarch of the Sisterhood of Sigmar during the fall of Mordheim. She sought refuge in strict discipline and devotions of the Sisters of Sigmar. The warrior god of the Empire was worthy of her esteem. Only he was constant and faithful, and had not Holy Sigmar in truth chosen her to become one of her handmaidens. That was kind of a weird. I'm quoting from one of the articles I was reading about her. The language in there was kind of weird, but yes, I find this lady is also really cool. She's a big badass type lady. She does a lot of fighting. She helps lead the Sisters of Sigmar in combat. I also like the Sisters of Sigmar because they remind me of like a cooler Sisters of Battle. Like the Sisters of Battle are mostly cool because they're ladies and they have bolters, but I often feel like their crazy fanaticism is so over the top that it's kind of difficult to take them too seriously for a lot of things. But that's kind of my feeling for a lot of things in Warhammer 40k. These guys are all, well, these girls, these ladies, these big old ladies are also, oh hey, you're very pretty. Oh, you're very pretty. You're a pretty girl. But these ladies are also, like very fanatical and stuff like that, but they're saving people. It says here in the, let's see, they fortified the walls of their covenant, and the sisters survived the great cataclysm that destroyed the city. They can now be seen collecting the precious weird stones to protect humanity from itself. And that's interesting because, the truth is in Warhammer, chaos is such a big influence on things, and chaos can influence all kinds of people in weird and interesting ways. But it's a good idea to try and keep, people from getting too much chaos into their system. But yeah, just these sisters, like, you think about how interesting it is. Like, the city is destroyed by the big old comet. There's all kinds of horrible, horrible monsters running around. Mutants, zombies, Nurgle worshippers, chaos cultists, Skaven, lots of Skaven. Lots of Skaven, oh lord. And they're all running around doing their thing, trying to stop them. And then these ladies are brave enough to stick around to try and collect the weird stone, to fight and defend, like the Order of Sigmar and to keep themselves alive. I just find that really interesting and really cool to have these kinds of characters. And I would say that I got very blue very quickly. I would say that a lot of the characters and a lot of the models we get for this kind of stuff isn't necessarily the best. But Games Workshop, honestly, like for a very long time, almost any character that you could see their face, it was like, wow, that's kind of bad looking. But it is what it is. But yeah, these ladies are very interesting, and if you are into Mordheim, perhaps you should give them a shot. Check them out. See what you think of them. I personally am thinking about getting a small set of Sisters of Sigmar to collect and paint myself, and make them all neat looking, and have them defeat the enemies of Sigmar. And maybe they'll team up with Yamina, and they'll go tell her that she worships the wrong god. And then she'll be like, but I like Myrmidia. And then they'll be like, ah, ha, 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 that's a funny way of saying Sigmar. Which, I mean, I guess it is. If you were trying to say Sigmar, you probably wouldn't say Myrmidia. You probably wouldn't put a bunch of M's in there. I mean, I guess Sigmar has an M in there. So, but you're adding a lot more M's. You don't want to add so many M's, man. You know what I mean? Jimmy Dean? Oh, hello. You guys all have, these tents look nice, but they actually look like they'd be kind of spacious on the inside, and like you could get pretty comfy in there. I'd be okay with sleeping in one of those tents, although I would like a nice bed instead. Nice beds are nice. But yeah, there's another thing I was going to say. I like that there are these female characters who aren't just portrayed as sexy. Like one of the characters I considered talking about, but I had some reservations about, was Emanuela. I think it's von Lebens. Von Lebens? Von Leibowitz. Yeah. But she is, the Elector Countess. She lives in Nuln. And she's kind of an interesting lady, but I will mention her as she is a lady of the Empire, and she is in a very prominent position. But I don't necessarily like that her characterization seems to at least be partially that she's kind of slutty, and like if you look at her outfits, they're very outlandish, and there's like kind of a lot of kind of weird stuff going on with her. She has some interesting stuff, and she's not entirely portrayed as that, but I was trying to focus on characters that didn't have that going on. And there were a few characters in novels and stuff. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal with Warhammer Fantasy, not as much. There were a couple characters in novels that I might say are a little over sexualized, especially female characters, but not terribly too much. Like there's occasionally like you have a tavern wench or something like that. That's not that bad. I mean, it's kind of tropey, but it's not like the worst. Ulrika would also be like a lady I would kind of honorably mention, but I feel like she's very strong and she's very cool, but she kind of comes into her own in her own books much better, I think, as a character, because she has her own books and she's also a vampire, like Genevieve and all that stuff. But she's not really from the Empire. She's from the Kislevites, or she's a Kislevite, but she, there's like a whole strong thing there, and it's kind of weird, I think, because one of the weird things about it is that the empowerment, because she's a powerful woman, she's a good fighter and stuff like that, and that's cool. But there's also like, I feel like there's a lot of mentions of like Kizilite women being empowered because they can just fuck whoever they want, which, I mean, yes, that's a form of empowerment, but we also have to think about it in like the context of like a book, of usually books written by, oh, hello. You're gonna bring them back? That'd be nice. Reincarnation's cool. But anyway, like, there is a little bit of that, and there's kind of one of the reasons I didn't really want to focus on Emanuela or Ulrika. I think, like I said, Ulrika becomes a much more interesting character in her own book series, but I'm mostly thinking of her portrayal in like Gotrek and Felix, where at least in the first time we see her in Gotrek and Felix, Felix seduces her, or well, she kind of seduces him. It's kind of weird. But there's a little bit there. It's not like terrible. It's not like she's just like a terrible damsel in distress from what I remember reading. I haven't read the stories with her in Gotrek and Felix in a little while. There is a little bit of that damsel type quality going on in specifically the Vampire Slayer book. But I don't think it's the worst. She's an interesting character. I wasn't really going to include her in the Empire Ladies just because she's actually from Kislev. But, at the same time, strong lady, good enough. And she does spend a decent portion of her time in the Empire. But Emmanuel is Manuel or Emmanuel? Emmanuel. She is also an interesting representation that there are women in the heights of power within the land of the Empire. We do see that there are women to today, or well, I'm going to say today because I choose to ignore the end times because I'm going to do that. Can't stop me. Look, you're not stopping me. Ignoring it. Ooh. Anyway, but yeah, she is an interesting character, and I like her well enough. She is also like very important in the Empire, but she's also kind of one of those people that I think I think that about the Heckerlied song, and I think about how like we'd probably hang the nobles. We wouldn't hang Karl Franz because he's cool, but there's some nobles we might little rope just in Minecraft. You know what I mean? In my Minecraft Warhammer server. You know what I mean? But, yeah. So, we're gonna move on. To another character, or there's another couple of characters I find interesting as well. This character, I will put the spoiler tags up and maybe section off the video or like put a time code in there so you can skip if you want to. But another lady that's very cool and very badass is a lady that you wouldn't know is a lady, except that it's okay here. Spoilers for Beast of Velvet. There, I told you. Now I'm also going to tell you though that I don't. Yes, technically this is a spoiler. However, I think if you're familiar with the tropes of writers and if you're familiar with some of the things going on, I don't really think there's any part of this. You could figure this out pretty early on by reading the book. I'm just going to be perfectly frank. I kind of pegged it with, like, within the first couple of chapters, but or like the first couple after the first couple of mentions. But this is Emmanuel's sister, but she's currently living as a man, Leos von Leibowitz, and he was considered the greatest duelist in the Empire. Overall, his dueling career, he slew many imperial nobles, most overperceived and most of the time when he slew these nobles, it was overperceived insults to his sister's honor. He never lost a duel. By the end of his life, he had killed so many imperial nobles that seating needed to be carefully arranged at social functions to avoid placing him next to the widow of one of his opponents. Now, I don't know what you think about that. That means the best swordsperson, the best fighter in the Empire, at least when it comes to like a duelist type deal, was a lady. It was a lady pretending to be a man, and there's reasons she pretends to be a man. I would say just read the book Beasts of Velvet to understand why that is. It's a very good book, and I would certainly recommend it. Another Genevieve book. And now I have here, and the spoilers. There we go. So now we have just two more, and they're kind of related. This is Magdalena. She was a journeyman at the Amethyst College, and the Amethyst College, for those of you who don't know, in the Warhammer Empire, is the College of Death Magic. And there's like 8 winds of magic, and each of them are connected to a different thing. And the Amethyst School is connected to death. And she's very dedicated and motivated, and she was described as very strong-willed. She's been a journeyman for 15 years, though, and still shows no sign of, like, being promoted. And I thought this was kind of interesting, because at first I read that and I was like, why isn't she going to be promoted? It's because she's a lady! But I knew that that wasn't actually the case, because, Empire doesn't really have that problem. It's very interesting. She's kind of an interesting character, and you should maybe look her up. She keeps getting very close to getting promoted, but then there's always something that interrupts it. But she's a very powerful wizard. She's been exposed to the Tand of Chaos once before, and she lost a bunch of her memories, or lost some of her knowledge, I guess. I don't remember if it's memories. I think it's specifically knowledge. But yeah, no, she's just like this really cool, interesting wizard lady. But there's the more interesting version of her, basically. They're not exactly the same, because they're both amethyst wizards, but I kind of think of them in kind of the same category. Elizabeth von Draken, called the Dark Lady of Nuln, and the Graveyard Rose, is a magistrix of the Amethyst Order and respected advisor to the Elector Countess Emmanuel von Leibowitz of Weissenland. I guess it's Weisenland, but I want to say Weissenland because, German. Von Draken was instrumental in defeating and slaying the Kurgan champion of Nurgle, Tamarkan. Tamarkan, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that was the big guy that had his own supplement, and he had a big dinosaur Nurgle monster he rode on. When the Maggot Lord launched a massive invasion of Weissenland with a great horde of warriors of Chaos and their Chaos Dwarf allies out of the Eastern Steppes that culminated in the Savage Battle of Nuln. And she does all kinds of basically huge badass magic, and she was just like, a zap, a zippity zap. And she was burning up them Nurgle boys real good, just like stepping on them and just go crunchy, crunchy, crunchy Nurgle boys. You know what I mean? And that's pretty cool. But I also think she's cool because in the current Warhammer Armies project, the Warhammer Empire book, you can get her as a character, and she's a wizard, and I've heard she's really fun to use. The only problem is I think she's like 800 points. She's something very high on points, and it's like maybe not 800, maybe 600. I can't remember exactly. She's very expensive, so to actually be able to use her in a game, you have to be playing a fairly large game. But yeah, she's really cool and really powerful. And they call her the Lady of Death, and she has all these. You can look her up too. She's got all kinds of crazy magics going on. But I do find that really cool. I mean, you just have a representation from all across the board. And the thing that was also interesting, and this is kind of a side note because this is in the Warhammer Online, but there was originally Warhammer Online had a couple of they had a website that had a couple of stories on it, and there was a story of a female knight on there too. I could not find this. I looked I didn't look super hard to be perfectly fair, but I didn't find it again. But no, so what I really like about the Empire is that despite it being in an early modern setting, there's plenty of room for women to move up in whatever career they're doing. There's some of the old stereotypical stuff like wenches and stuff like that, but there's also a lot of very powerful, really cool women, like really powerful mages, powerful vampire ladies, powerful, like there's the Elector Countess. There's also the best duelist in the Empire was, fucking lady. But um there's also like there's like the Sisters of Sigmar who take this desperate situation and manage to claw their way out of it, and I just think that's all really neat. And the Divine Mother is present in all women, so why not be present in the women in the fictional setting of Warhammer too? Why not? So that's pretty cool, I think. I don't know. I think that having all these female badasses and stuff like that mixed within the lore is pretty neat. I think there's a lot of other minor characters you can kind of get into. There's some characters in the Gotrek and Felix books, but I think that sometimes those go a little bit not sexist per se, but they start to feel very samey. In particular, like women, it's like a young woman falls for Felix, she gets the dick. Oh no, now she's not into him anymore, or oh no, now she gon' die, or just I don't know. Those start to feel kind of samey. Where some of the characters are interesting and kind of different, but there's also a lot of just like Felix just flirting with like literally Felix is just like, I need a woman at all times, which is nice. But it would be nice if you respected them for more than their looks, and the second they had an opinion that was contrary to yours, you didn't go meh. I don't know. I like Felix well enough that sometimes in some of the stories he came off as a little bit bratty to me. But yeah, no, there's a lot of really interesting ladies out there, and there's a lot of interesting female characters in the Warhammer Empire novels, and I would really suggest that some people come check them out. You guys, doesn't look like how you're supposed to enjoy that comfortable. Honestly, those chairs look like they were really low to the ground. Like you need to raise those up a little bit. Those don't look like they'd actually be comfortable to sit in, you know what I mean? But I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like sharing some of the stuff I found while looking around for females in the Empire, ladies in the Empire. And right now I'm looking to find some state troop models or something I could use as state troop models that had like a little bit of a feminine look. See, here's my problem. I want to have some female state troopers in my little Empire army. Very cool and good. A lot of miniatures, I don't know why this is, but a lot of miniatures are very over-sexualized, like a little too ridiculous, guys. But there's some good stuff out there, and I'm just looking to find more. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video of me talking about Ladies of the Empire and babbling about all that cool stuff. And I hope that you have a great, fantastic day, and I hope that the Divine Mother blesses you. And I also hope that you get a hug from me in your mind. Ooh. You know what I mean? Okay, bye.